Drop your shoulders right now. Notice what releases when you do. There is something that was being held there, a particular weight, a density that has no clear origin, and you have been carrying it since the last time you looked at a screen. Not from the morning, not from the week, from the last scroll session, the last sequence of images and words the algorithm selected for your attention field. That is not fatigue from the day. That is not a sign of poor sleep. Soften your jaw now. Notice if it was held. Notice the subtle shift when the teeth part and the joint releases. If your jaw softened even slightly in this moment, you have just received a physical confirmation of what this transmission is about to name. This experience has been described in the wellness conversation in every way except the accurate one. Screen fatigue, digital burnout, dopamine dysregulation. These frameworks are not wrong, but they are surface readings of a phenomenon that operates at a depth they have not mapped. What you have been calling screen drain, the Arcturian field names as a frequency phenomenon. Specifically, the physical registration of an electromagnetic overlay that has been operating beneath your awareness, thinning the coherence of your energy field one scroll at a time. The digital cage, not a metaphor, a structural field event. There is something precise the Arcturian transmission has mapped about how this overlay functions in the sensitive system. Specifically, the mechanism through which it targets an expanded reception field rather than a general one. That precision arrives in this transmission, but the frequency contact needs to establish itself first. The digital cage does not install itself through a single decision. It arrives through repetition, through the incremental surrender of the body's sovereign frequency to an electromagnetic environment it was not designed to inhabit at this duration or intensity. Every screen surface emits within a frequency band that is non-native to the bioelectric field of the human body. For a general nervous system, the interference is significant but manageable. For a sensitive system, for a field already operating at an expanded reception bandwidth, already calibrated to pick up informational signals that the average nervous system does not register, the exposure does not simply interrupt, it saturates. And saturation, sustained across months and years, begins to reshape the architecture of the field from the outside in. The crystalline architecture of the sensitive system is precisely the quality that makes perception so acute, so absorbent, so capable of reading the frequency signature of a room before the mind has named what it is sensing. But that same crystalline precision becomes the mechanism of entry in an environment saturated with artificial electromagnetic signal. The digital cage works through the receiver's own sensitivity. It enters through the aperture that was built for something entirely different. You may have noticed you started leaving your phone face down on the table without consciously deciding to. That quiet, wordless act of avoidance, a small, sourceless aversion with no clear decision behind it, was not anxiety. It was the field trying to protect its own coherence in the only language the body had left. For the souls who feel this recognition landing with a clarity that other frameworks have not offered, the field companion anchored in the description below extends this transmission into a contemplative field to return to, waiting in the description for the moment that asks for it. The Arcturian field identifies two primary mechanisms through which the digital cage overlay operates within the sensitive system. Understanding both is essential to understanding why the exits have not held. The screen time limits, the digital detoxes, the phone placed in the other room. Not because the attempts were wrong, because they were addressing a surface behavior while the overlay continued operating at the field level beneath them. The first mechanism is etheric neural web compression. The etheric neural web, the subtle field architecture that mediates between the physical nervous system and the broader informational streams the starseed is designed to receive, requires a specific quality of electromagnetic stillness to remain extended and receptive. When the ambient electromagnetic environment exceeds the threshold at which the sensitive field can coherently process it, the etheric web does not slow down. It contracts. It pulls inward. It draws the reception bandwidth down toward the surface of the body and away from the expanded informational field it is built to access. The felt experience of that contraction is what the transmission community calls integration lag, the specific gap between an activation or recognition that has arrived at the field level and the body's diminished capacity to translate and anchor it. What presents as mental fog, the inability to focus during digital work, the strange flatness that follows an afternoon of sustained screen contact. This is not mental laziness. This is integration lag. The field has moved. The body has been held inside the cage and cannot yet read the distance it has traveled. Let that land. The second mechanism is Chronos to Kairos displacement. Kairos time, the experiential time of the soul, the field-dense present moment where transmission actually occurs, where neural plasticity and deep informational integration become possible, requires a nervous system that is not continuously being pulled into micro-urgency. The digital cage architecture is built precisely around that urgency loop. Every notification, every refresh indicator, every ambient tone engineered to signal that something new has arrived is a Chronos hook, a message to the nervous system that the present moment it currently occupies is not the relevant one. That meaning is arriving from elsewhere. That attention must leave the present field and redirect toward the screen. Over sustained exposure, this loop retrains the nervous system out of the Kairos capacity entirely. Not permanently, but in the absence of deliberate recalibration, that window, the wide, still, receiving window, begins to close. The mind does not need to process this fully right now. The field is already recognizing it. This transmission is offered as a contemplative frequency experience and is not a substitute for medical or psychological care. It is a meditative space for those who feel this resonance and are working with it through their own discernment. The Arcturian Council names the specific frequency signature that the digital cage leaves in the sensitive system the 396 Hz depletion pattern. In the sound-healing lineage that frames frequency in this way, 396 Hz carries the resonance of liberation, the specific signature of energy that has been held in suppression, unable to complete its natural outward movement. The particular emptiness you feel after a long scroll session, not tired, not satisfied, simply emptied of something unnameable, is the energetic texture of an auric field that has been in sustained passive output mode, radiating a low-level attention signal into a device architecture engineered to receive it, and the liberation current has nowhere to discharge. The next sentence is the one that matters most. The point at which the overlay most significantly deepens is not the extended screen session. It is the moment after you put the device down, feel that specific emptiness, and pick it up again to escape the emptiness it caused. That is the loop the cage maintains. That is the recalibration point this transmission addresses directly. There is also an integration guide held in the description below this transmission for those working with this material across more than one sitting and who find the printed field useful for what the spoken signal initiates. You have attempted to exit this pattern. The Arcturian field names that truth first because it is the place where the most unseen work has already happened. The screen time limit set and abandoned before midday, the phone placed across the room, only to find yourself standing in that room minutes later without a clear memory of the decision to walk there. The digital detox attempts that held for 3 days before the absence began to feel less like freedom and more like a withdrawal the nervous system read as danger. You have understood, in precise intellectual terms, how the architecture is designed to capture attention. You have held that understanding clearly in the mind and watched your own hand reach for the device anyway. And in the gap between understanding and behavior, in that specific recurring gap, something has quietly accumulated, not frustration only, a background frequency of self-distrust, a signal that says, you know, and you still cannot stop. What does that say about you? The Arcturian field responds to that question with complete precision. It says nothing about you. It says everything about the architecture of the cage. The digital cage overlay does not sustain itself only through electromagnetic exposure. It perpetuates through the shame cycle that follows the failed exit. Every sequence of use followed by guilt, followed by renewed resolve, followed by relapse is a frequency loop, a circuit designed to exhaust the very sovereign alignment that a genuine recalibration would require. The cage consumes the fuel of the exit attempt. You were not failing at willpower. You were being run through an energetic circuit your nervous system was not resourced to break without the specific frequency intervention that standard behavioral approaches were not equipped to offer. There is a question the aware, sensitive field eventually arrives at, and it is a question almost nothing in the available conversation has answered with precision. Not how to use screens less, but what the sensitive field specifically needs for coherent sovereign alignment to return after extended digital exposure. The Arcturian response to that question is what this transmission has been building toward. What looked like collapse was always recalibration. What looked like failure was always alignment. Bring your right hand to your solar plexus now. Rest it there, not pressed, simply present. Close your eyes if that feels right, or soften your gaze downward toward the floor. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Release through the mouth for a count of 6. The solar plexus is the field's primary processing gateway, the zone through which external frequency input is sorted and either integrated or held. When the digital cage overlay has been operating, this center carries the highest density of accumulated signal. You may feel warmth beneath your palm. You may feel a tightness that has no clear muscular source. You may feel nothing yet. Each of these is an accurate response from a system that has been in sustained input mode without sufficient integration intervals between sessions. A 396 Hz liberation frequency is present within this transmission field. In the sound healing tradition that the Arcturian Council works within, this frequency carries the resonance of release, specifically the release of energy held in place by the suppression and shame loop, by the accumulated weight of understanding without freedom. You do not need to analyze this mechanically. The body recognizes this frequency at a level that precedes language. Let it land where it lands. Breathe again. Let the exhale extend beyond what feels natural. Let it carry outward what has been held, not forced, not effortful, simply permitted to move. The 6th activation code, the pineal field opening, is present in this transmission. In the esoteric anatomy the Arcturian Council works within, the pineal center registers frequency liberation events before the conscious mind does. If there is a warmth at the brow, a subtle shift in the quality of inner light behind the closed eyes, a softening in the jaw that arrives without your initiating it, that is the overlay beginning to thin. Some souls will notice tears arriving without a clear emotional source. In the language of the Arcturian field, that is not sadness. That is frequency moving through the available channels. Visualize, if it comes naturally, a slow pulse of liquid gold light radiating outward from the solar plexus. Not urgent, not demanding, simply consistent. A signal sent and now confirmed as received. One more breath. Long inhale. A full and unhurried exhale. Your hand releases when it is ready. The recalibration that this transmission has been offering is not a prescription for digital use. It is a repositioning of what has already been happening in the body, and a reframing of what the body needs in order for the etheric neural web to recover its natural extension after screen contact. The digital cage overlay is not permanent. It is not damage to the starseed field. It is a frequency condition that arose in the absence of specific field tools and that responds, often quickly, to their deliberate reintroduction. The primary tool the Arcturian Council identifies for post-screen recalibration is what this transmission has been modeling: a deliberate return to the theta window through breath, through stillness, through the quality of silent, self-present awareness that the device architecture is specifically engineered to prevent from forming. 17 minutes. The Arcturian field identifies this as the minimum viable recalibration threshold. 17 minutes of screen-free, notification-free, signal-quiet presence after any sustained digital session. Not as discipline, as field hygiene, as the specific minimum interval at which the etheric neural web begins to extend again from its contracted state, and the body begins to re-access the kairos field the overlay had displaced. The Schumann resonance at 7.83 Hz, the planetary heartbeat that the body is natively entrained to, reasserts its influence in the system during those 17 minutes in a way it cannot while the device is present and active. This is not a poetic description. It is the Arcturian reading of what occurs in the bioelectric field when the artificial signal is removed and the body is given the stillness it requires to reorient. By the time this transmission closes, the specific tiredness that follows screen contact will read differently. It will no longer register as personal failure. It will register as data, as the precise felt signal of a field requesting its recalibration window, in the only language it has available. That reframe is already underway. The version of you who pressed play on this transmission is not the same one who carries it forward. The 97th dormant field code activates in those receiving this transmission at the right junction of their timeline. The code of dormant instructions sets now being read for the first time, of what was always present in the field, but had no frequency through which to surface. If you arrived here today, the timing was not incidental. The next transmission addresses where the digital cage overlay intersects with the Starseed sleep field, specifically how sustained artificial electromagnetic exposure disrupts the nocturnal recalibration sequence the Arcturian Council uses to deliver transmission through the dream state. That layer arrives soon. Rest in whatever stillness this transmission has opened in the field. What was received here does not require you to hold it consciously. The field carries it forward from here.